Quick PSA, this is a video for spenders, not just anybody out there. So if that's going to trigger you, go ahead and click off. That's totally fine. I am opening some shards at the end of this because I want to examine today the value of pulling Prism Shards versus pulling Sacred Shards. And I think the value's turned, and it's definitely going to turn more in the future. Welcome, I'm the Deadwoodjedi. This is a Raid Shadow Legends video. I wanted to look at Prism Shards and Sacred Shards. Now, this might be very common knowledge for you. It might not bring anything new to the table for you as far as which shards you want to pull. And really what it comes down to is which shards do you want to buy? I think that's really what it comes down to because, you know, frankly, we're not getting a lot of free Prism Shards every day. We get a lot of Sacred Shards, and they're two very different kind of things. You're not, you know, all of a sudden going to change the way you play the game in order to get more Prism Shards versus Sacred Shards. It doesn't kind of work that way in game. But where I do think the decision comes down to is where do you want to spend your money? Not everybody spends money on this game. That's totally fine. It's a great free to play game, I think, honestly. But if you are someone that does spend, I spend, you know, I'm not a whale, probably like a dolphin, right? I spend a little bit every month, and then I definitely spend more at, you know, at certain times or less at certain times as it happens to be. I've recently spent a lot with the 5th anniversary. There were a lot of deals that I was excited in getting into, and I had some free money to do that. I'm interested though. One of the things I was able to do during that, I was able to pull Finna, and I pulled her from one of these summon pool events, right? Using these Prism Shards. And I hadn't really looked at are Prism Shards better than Sacred Shards, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized, yeah, I think they are. And like I said, this is probably not news. I know to the big whales out there, this isn't, you know, any groundbreaking news, but I just thought it'd, you know, be a fun video to examine it, and I could pull some shards at the end of it. So if you don't care about the math, so you can skip to the end. But I did do some math on this, trying to break down which one's better depending on what events are kind of going on. So without further ado, let me pull up my math here, right? I've got it on a nice little text document, super fancy today, absolutely. So basically what I looked at was, you know, first off, I had to figure out how many champions are in this pool, right? How many champions can you pull? Because we're not getting void champions, right? With either the summon pool or with our Sacred Shard, you're just getting the non-void legendaries. So I went through and counted them all from the index, 188 non-void Legos, 18 of which you can't pull, right? We've got Chronum, who's part of the, you know, he's going to be one of those champions you get from, you know, having other accounts, right? The account sharing or like, you know, inviting people in to play the game. So he's not summonable. You've got Thea, Gomlock, Varl, Bathasa, Vassal, Chromax, Grosnar. All of them are from Doom Tower shards or Doom Tower fragments. So you can't pull any of those either. And then, of course, we have the unique champions that'll never be in the game again. We're talking about like Ninja, Rhonda, Alexander, Xena, Rathalos, right? And on top of that, we also have the other one of the Blade Master crew, right? Which we're talking about Zinogre, Alatreon, and Narragante. And then, of course, we have those faction lords, which you can't pull from Sacred Shards, and you can't unless there's an event for them. You can't pull these champions, and we're talking about Finna and Aislinn. So that's 18. So we have 170 champions that are actually pullable from a Sacred Shard. A lot of champions. That's a big pool of champions to pull from, 170. So a lot of times when we pull, really what we're looking for is something new, something that we don't have already. That's kind of an important part of this. And so I went down and I tried to break down what is the chance of getting them. Now, when it comes to prisms, you have a 7% chance of pulling a legendary and a 93% chance of pulling an epic. So very similar to what a Sacred Shard is. Sacred Shard's 6% chance to pull a legendary. So it's a slightly higher rate. So on a shard for shard, a shard per shard basis, outside of any events, a Prism Shard has a better chance of pulling a legendary than a Sacred Shard. Not huge, 1%. But it's important to note that, I think. The big question comes in, what happens when there's an event going on, right? Like a 10x event or a 15x progressive event, right? Is it better to pull for the prisms than on the sacreds? And the real thing comes down to, if you're pulling these shards, it's to get one of the champions from this particular summon pool. That's really why we were pulling them in this case, right? There's no champions in the summon pool you want, you don't pull the shards. that simple, right? Just in the same way, if there's a 15x event and you don't want any of the champions, you generally don't want to pull shards unless it's for an event, right? Like a champion chase tournament or a summoning event. That might be a different story. And that is important to know, right? Like, these summon pools are great. I think those 15x's are pretty good too. 2x's are always great, right? If you're just looking for, mass champions, 2x's are still going to be better rates than you're going to get from these summoning pools. But the question is, how easy is it to get the specific champion you want just in that particular event? And I think that pound for pound, it's actually a little bit more close than I thought it was. I thought, summoning pool, definitely going to be better. But when I broke down the numbers, the 15x's generally are going to have a better chance if there's only one champion you want. Where I think it gets a little more interesting is when there's multiple champions that you want from the summoning pool. In those cases, the summoning pool is 100% the way to go. And so I broke it down, right? So obviously, you're only going to get the rate for the champions on a 15x or 10x, right? It's for when you get a legendary. So there's always when you get a legendary, right? So if you're just pulling one Prism Shard, or when you get a legendary on your first Prism Shard, you basically have a 7% chance of pulling the legendary you want if you only want one legendary. If you want two, it's a 14% chance, basically doubles, right? And so on. So the more champions you want, the better the chances of you getting one of those champions, obviously. But it's about 7% per champion. Now you can see there's only 14 champions here. You can see on the side, there's only 14 legendary champions in this pool. And I think that's pretty much on average. I'm not sure if the pools change the volume or not, but it's something kind of to keep in mind. With only 14, that's a 7% chance to pull the champion you want, a 1 in 7 chance. On a 10x event, it's only a 6% chance, rounded up, right? So if you think about it, it's like there's 170 total champions. If you have all of a sudden now, it's actually, you know what? That's less than that. I forgot because they're adding shards. I actually did the math wrong on this. So, wow. Okay. Let me redo the math here to account for, because when you do a 10x or a 15x, it's not the same pool. The pool all of a sudden grows by the extra chances you have, right? So it's basically like having 170 ping pong balls, each one being a different legendary. On a 10x, you're adding 9 more ping pong balls that are the same champion, right? And so that champion now has 10 ping pong balls where everybody else has 1. So let me redo that math really quick for those. We'll see what we're at. Okay, so the math changed a little bit, but the conclusions kind of stayed the same. Basically what happens is, right, if you the chance of pulling the sacred you want out of one sacred shard, right? Or I'm sorry, chance of pulling the legendary you want out of a sacred shard when you get a legendary is only 6%, right? It's basically a 1 in 170 chance, right? Chance of getting it out of Prism Shard is a 7% chance. It's 1 out of 14. The chance of getting it on a 10x, where you're basically talking about 10 chances out of 179. Remember, there's already 1 in the 170 pool, so we add 9 to it. So 1 in 179 is 5.5%. The chance of pulling it on a 15x is 8.2%, right? So basically, the chance of getting the champion you want on a 15x is going to be greater than getting it from one of these summon pool events. Now, of course, we're assuming you only want one champion. I think that's the deal breaker when it comes to these Prism Shards. But moving on, this is, I think, where it starts to get really interesting and starts to show how good the progressive events are. What's the chance of getting that legendary after you pull a second legendary, right? Let's say on the first legendary, you don't get the champion you want. What's the chance that you're going to get them on the second pull, right? Out of those 2 legendaries you pull, what's the chance of getting them? Well, it's basically a 13, almost a 14% chance with the Prism Shards, right? And it is only an 11% chance with the 10x event and an 18% chance with the 20x. So automatically, we can already see 10x's are pretty much trash. This is one of the reasons why people were pushing so hard to have those rates increase. So I really encourage you not to pull on 10x events. Wait for one of these summon events, wait for a progressive chance, but the 10x's are just bad generally. The interesting thing is when obviously we keep going on the third legendary. So if you pull 3 legendaries, what's the chance of one of them being the champion that you want? In a Prism Shard, it's about 20%. With a 25x, it's about 28.5%. And on a 10x, it's about 15, almost 16% chance. So you can see the progressive chances, because the progression keeps getting higher, the chances are definitely going to be better. What I think becomes really interesting is what happens when you want more than one champion out of this summon pool. What happens when you want two champions out of it? And this is where I think it gets really, really interesting for us, right? First off, most of these progressive chances, they're pretty much always one legendary champion that you're going to be able to get, right? One legendary, one epic. That's what you're focused on. With the summon pool, you have such a smaller number of champions, right? And so, but in that pool, you can get any of them. So if you want more than just the one you're looking for, the chances start to get a lot better. Basically, they double, right? Because you have basically twice the chance. So what's happening with even just on getting on your first legendary, getting the sacred you want, or getting the legendary you want on your first legendary pull, with the Prism Shard, that becomes a 14% chance instead of just 7. That trounces everything else. If you get two legendaries, what's the chance of you getting the one you want when there's two champions, one of the two champions you want for the Prism Shards? It jumps all the way up to 26.5%. That's way better than the 18% chance on a 20x, right? And then obviously with if you pull 3 legendaries, what's the chance of one of them being the one you want? We're talking a 37% chance when you want 2 of the legendaries in this pool. Now, I myself, there's like half of these champions that I would be interested in personally. If we look at them here, right? Krogar the Bell, I think, is somebody I don't have, the Death Bell, so I'd be fine getting him. Harima, I don't have on my account. Noct the Paralyzer, I don't have on my account. Gnu, because who doesn't need more nuts? Everybody needs more nuts. They're healthy for you, right? We also want Nekmothar, don't have that on my account. Theodore, don't have that on my account. Cupidus, I don't have on my account. That's 7. That's literally half the pool. On top of which, I wouldn't mind getting another Prince Kymar, right? So you're talking 7, maybe 8 champions I'd love to get. Basically a 50-50 shot of getting a legendary that I don't have or desperately want again. That's a pretty good odds right there. And it's only going to go up the more legendary shards, or the more Prism Shards I pull, the more legendaries I'm able to pull from this event. Now, obviously, the rate of actually getting a legendary isn't any better. It's only slightly better than it would be from a sacred shard, 7% versus 6%, but it is better. It doesn't really affect the rates here, even accounting for the chance of getting a legendary shard. It's still the progressive chances when you're just looking at a one-on-one basis is still going to be slightly better. But, it's still pretty good here. I think one of the underrated things though about this, one of the things that you really want to keep in mind, and I think this is another thing that really kind of pushes stuff over into the Prism Shard realm, is the cost. Let me switch my camera here real quick here. So if we look at the costs here of these shards, you get one pull for every 30 crystals you have. You get 210. This is just the base stuff. This isn't the deals or anything. And we know sacred shards generally go for about $20 a pop. Right, you can get them obviously with this. Over the past week, one of the reasons why I've actually bought a lot of shards, something I don't generally do a ton of anymore, is because the prices dropped dramatically. Where sacreds are going for like $10 a pop or less. These crystals, right? You're gonna get 210 for $50. That's 7 pulls for $50. That's about $7 a pop, right? Maybe $8 a pop in that range. That is less than you'll find for sacreds on the raw. Definitely less than you even get them for the deals as well. And that's just the base crystal offer. In fact, what I find interesting about the Prism Shards is oftentimes the deals they have don't actually seem to be better deals than what is offered in the base. They actually seem to be worse, which I find very interesting, right? And I suppose that's because you're limited on how many you can buy a day, but it's a real interesting thing to me. But it seems to me very clear that these Prism Shards are a much better value, dollar for dollar. And the chance of getting the champion you want is, if assuming that you want more than one champion out of this pool, is considerably better than those progressive events. So if you're a spender, if you're one of those people that's like, I'm targeting certain champions, this summoning portal, the Prism Shards, is 100%, I think, the way to go. Obviously, it all depends on who you have in your account. It depends on who's in the pool. It depends on what it is you want from your shards. And it also depends, I think this is important, on if there's a summoning event or a champion chase event going on. I think that really does matter. But that said, if there's not a summoning event going on, even if it's champion chase, I still think these summoning portals, the Prism Shard is way better than Sacred's, just on a pound for pound basis. You can get basically twice as much for the same price. And I think that has a major impact on, what you can do. So that said, I'm going to get some crystal shards, some Prism Shards, and we're going to open some. We're going to see what we can't pull today. All right, I got 2 packs of them. It's a lot, I know, but I figured this way we can actually open some of these and see what we can't get here. Could just do a big old 10 pull. I've never done that before. That's interesting. I don't know about that. Yeah, let's do a 10 pull and see what we can get. There's like half of these that I would love to get on my account. A bunch of them that I just don't have. And, for the others, it's not the worst thing in the world to be pulling some dupes. So we'll just see what we can't get here and dive in. We're going to do a big 10 pull. We'll see what we can't get out of this. So Geomancer, oh, by the way, Farrakhan the Fat is in this pool too. So there's a bonus for me just on the epic part of this. Can I get him? It's a whole different story. I probably won't because I never do. But, it does make it the chances a little bit better. Obviously, this was awful. Not getting any sacreds, any legendaries is terrible. But yeah, there is that. So that part sucks for sure. Oh boy. Well, I was hoping we'd get something out of this, but it is only a 7% chance. So to even expect to get something is maybe a little wishful thinking. Duck the Pierce is not what I want. There's a legendary. And we got a Theodore. And we got a Theodore the Savant. Oh man, I've wanted this champion for a long time. This is really cool for me. This guy is amazing. He is one of those guys that will just absolutely destroy some of your speed runs. I'm not so sure how much he's used in hard mode, to be honest with you guys. There's a lot of anti-poison stuff going on there. But outside of that, he's extremely good. Obviously, he can do increases duration of poison and HP burns, instantly activates them, puts weaken out there, has an increased speed buff, which is actually really nice. Plus, places poisons and poison sensitivity, decreased speed as an AoE. He gets more resistance. Like he's got some cool stuff. This guy's a really cool champion. I'll be interested to see if I can actually use him in my kits, but I never had him to begin with, and I was really excited just to pull him. So that's a big one. That's a big win for me, right? If we think about that, we just pulled what, 12, 13 legendary or 13 shards, right? I think even in Sacreds, that's not unheard of to not get a legendary in that, especially without an event going on, and then to make sure that you get something you want. I think that's a big win. We got 2 more. We'll pull them and see if we can't get anything fun. I mean, if I got Farrakhan the Fat, that would be the biggest win. That would be the biggest win of all. Won't get him though. Won't get him, I'm sure. Nope. Still haven't got him. It's there's a block on my account for Farrakhan the Fat. So obviously you can see, like, I'm not saying that this is going to be great for everybody out there, but I think that if you are someone that spends money, this is, I think, something not to be overlooked, and something I overlooked for a long time. That's why I'm putting this video out there, is because I ignored this for a long time. Wasn't keeping up with the Joneses, and then I realized, oh yeah, this is probably something I should pay attention to. So, is the money worth it for a legendary? I mean, I don't, it's a game. I don't know. It's, if you can spend it, I guess, but probably not really. But, the fact that, of the champions that are available here, so many of them are good ones, I think makes it something that's a much more, makes all the difference, really. So if there are champions, if you're looking at something going, okay, there's a bunch of these champions I could really use, this might be a really good way to go and get. I think it's better than doing the progressive, as long as there's more than one champion available for you that you want, because it's such a smaller pool. It makes such a big difference. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And even if you have some of these champions, right? Like I've got a pair of Elvas, I've got a Battle Khazar, I got 3 Valkyries, I think. Even if you pull them, this is a really fast and easy way to +4 your champions, or basically rank them up. So that's something that you're interested in. This might be a really good option for you. Also, you can see how many epics I pulled. If you need an epic, oh Farrakhan, how badly I need you. I think all this applies to that as well. Now I only need Farrakhan the Fat, Basically, he's the only one I need out of this pool. So, you know, me pulling this, a progressive event would be better just to get Farrakh and the Fat for me. That said, you know, I'm basically going to try and take every opportunity I can to get him, and it's just never going to happen. And it's glorious. I love that part about this game. Much as it frustrates me, I do like that. Anyway, that's the video, guys. So, you know, we got ourselves a new champion, Theodore the Savant. Really good one. You know, hopefully I still got 20 Prism Shards. Hopefully I can get some more from some events and stuff over the next week or two, and over the next couple days, not week or two, over the next couple days, and maybe get another shot at getting one of these game-breaking champions that I just don't have on my account yet. Anyway, I just thought I'd put that out there for you guys. Those of you that spend money in this game, this might be an option to look at. Anyway, that's all we got for today. So till next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.